Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. It's season 4. Join us for more conversations, more information, and more survivors as we discuss the issues breast cancer and other cancer survivors face. Come along on our journey. We are survivors. Welcome to Boob Talk. I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Thank you for joining me this evening. Tonight we have a special Survivor Spotlight. It's time for Survivor Spotlight, shining the light on the courage, hope, and faith of a survivor's journey. Tonight, our special guest is Zainab. She is an author, acquisition specialist, and humanitarian committed to empowering women in the U.S., West Africa, and the Caribbean. Zainab, welcome to Boob Talk.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you with us this evening and to share your story. I'd like to get started and ask you, when did you first get diagnosed with breast cancer?
I was diagnosed in 2022, just 10 days before my 50th birthday. And I was diagnosed after I had discovered a peanut-sized lump in my right breast. I had just been scheduled to get a hysterectomy and oophorectomy, and I mentioned it to my gynecologist, and he suggested that I should wait until after I get the surgery done. You know, he said that nothing would change if I waited. So I took his advice. I did that, and he wrote me a referral to get a 3D mammogram. And right where I had told him and the mammogram tech, it was right there on my lower quadrant of my right breast, a 1.8 centimeters little mass.
What was your initial feelings when you felt the lump? Were you afraid, thinking, is this something? What were your thoughts at that time?
I was very afraid because, you know, it ran in my family. And
okay.
I was angry. I was afraid. I had suffered from really bad anxiety. I didn't know what was going to happen to me.
When did they find out that it actually was breast cancer? You know, how long after that time that you had that mammogram?
Well, I think I came in, I believe it was like 3 days later. I was scheduled for a core needle biopsy, and they sent it off to the pathology, and it came back as stage 1A ductal carcinoma in situ. And that's how I found out.
Were you in the office, or did they have to call you?
No, my doctor called me over the phone, and I freaked out. I waited by the phone nervously. They told me 7 to 10 days, and I just scoured the internet trying to find information, and I drove myself crazy doing that. I really wish I hadn't done that. But, yeah, I got that fateful call. It was like 6 days later, and she told me over the phone, and I was paralyzed.
I know, it's frightening. I had to receive that phone call myself, and then you just numb and in complete shock when you hear that news because it's something you're not expecting to hear.
Indeed.
What family members of yours had breast cancer?
My mother had it, and my grandmother had it. My mother passed away in 2013. Yes. My grandmother, I think. Yeah, in 2016. Both of them had breast cancer. The doctor had told us that what my mother had, it wasn't hereditary. I don't know how they had determined that. But I began taking steps to make sure, you know, I would know ahead of time. I did my breast self-exams, and that's what prompted me to find out how I had breast cancer. It was through my breast self-exam.
good to hear that you were proactive and trying to be conscious and aware and do your self-breast exam. Were you getting mammograms at an earlier age, or did you have to wait till you were 40?
Yeah, I was able to get it. I was just maybe a few months shy of being 40, but because my mother had it, they let me do the test. And just recently, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I did 2 genetic tests. I did one, and they said I didn't carry any gene mutations. And then I did another one with Morehouse School of Medicine. They had a trial going on, and I had entered that. I didn't enter the trial, but I donated my breast tissue to them after it was taken from my breast cancer surgery. And so I did a second test, and it also said that I didn't carry the gene mutations, and it gave me a little more ease about it. But the counselor told me that I had what they call familial genes, which means I had 1 or 2 first-degree relatives, and
Okay.
I just in the family.
So do you have any daughters?
I have 2 daughters, yes. My one daughter, she just recently had a breast reduction because of this. She didn't have breast cancer, but she was terrified. And she said, what if they don't find it? My breasts are so big. But she just had a breast reduction as a result of this. And, I just make sure they do their breast self-exams. I have 2 daughters,
Right.
2 granddaughters, 2 sisters, 3 nieces. I just make sure they stay on it.
Right. I would say early detection really is key. Finding that lump early did save your life.
Yeah, I can't even imagine waiting until my next mammogram, which was 1 year away. My outcome might not have been so glamorous. I could have been at a later stage or anything. My treatment would have been different. So I'm thankful that, I was doing my breast exams. And I don't just do them the first of the month. I do them every day that I'm in the shower.
Right. I do that too. Well, after I had breast cancer, I just then became so paranoid, unfortunately, but, just all throughout the day, every day, all day long, It took me probably a good year before I wasn't just so paranoid to stop checking myself constantly, but, I just couldn't help it.
Well, I was the exact opposite of you. I was very paranoid. My breast cancer was estrogen receptor positive. I had dense breast tissue, and it just drove me crazy. And it was a year later where I decided to go ahead and do the prophylactic bilateral mastectomy because of that. I was so paranoid. Every area that I would touch just felt like a lump to me. I could not live my life like that. I just made the decision to go ahead and just remove them, get the tissues expanders, and the breast implant. My surgery is next Wednesday, I believe, on the 6th, to get my exchange surgery.
Okay. What was your initial treatment? Was it lumpectomy?
Lumpectomy, 16 days of radiation, and 5 years of anastrozole.
Okay.
My anastrozole just got switched to letrozole. I complained about the symptoms. I was having really, really bad bone and joint pain.
Oh, my goodness. I was too.
Yes. My hair was thinning. I had this confusion and head fog, blurry vision. So my doctor 2 weeks ago told me, just take a 2-week break. I didn't even know that was an option. I would have been complaining. I just thought okay, well, I need this. It's no sense of complaining. There's nothing they can do. All I can do is, take the supplements and do what I need to do to combat some of these symptoms. But she said, no, you can take a 2-week break. And if, the symptoms are better, we can talk about switching you to letrozole. And I told her yesterday that my symptoms were gone after taking this 2-week break from it. She said, well, let's try the letrozole with you. I picked up my prescription this morning.
Well, I can vouch for that. What happened with me is I suffer from back issues for several years, but when I was taking anastrozole, I was having the joint pain, but I'm thinking it's just because of my back. I remember I had the flu, and I had for 2 days forgot to take the pills. And then the one day I said, oh, my gosh, I'm not in pain. And then I put two and two together, was in support groups, and then people were saying how they were having severe joint pain from anastrozole, and they had to get off it. So I was, well, that's what it was. So I went to my doctor and told them, and they took me off of it and put me on letrozole, and I hadn't had any issues since. So I know what you're talking about.
Oh, that is great to hear because, I'm taking my letrozole. I like taking mine at night because if I have any brain fog or symptoms, I just rather be in my sleep. I have to be able to function during the daytime. I started off taking it during the day, but after tonight, I stopped taking it for 2 days so I can switch to night. And that's what my doctor told me to do. But I'm taking letrozole for the first time tonight.
Yeah, I actually take mine right before I go to sleep. So I do the same thing. I hope everything goes well. So let's talk about your decision to have the mastectomy. How were you feeling? What was your thought process? Were you afraid?
I definitely was afraid. I was nervous. I'm like, oh, gosh, do I really want to do this? But I thought about, the risk that I had. Like I said, I had the dense breast tissue, and see the brain fog gets back. The dense breast tissue and the estrogen receptor positive. And also during my lumpectomy, my pathology report came back that I had invasive ductal carcinoma. So my diagnosis had switched because it did indeed spread to one of the 2 lymph nodes taken during my first surgery. Okay. So having that, I said, you know what, I'm going to just go ahead and do this mastectomy. And I'm thinking that if I do the mastectomy, that I would be at 0%. But that was not the case, and I can forget about this pill. That was so
right, yeah. Unfortunately, that's not true. God forbid, but it still can come back in other areas. But we're prayerful that it won't. I just commend you on taking the steps that you felt were necessary for you.
Yeah, and a lot of people questioned me about this. Well, they cut the cancer out. You were stage 1, but until you've been in my shoes and was paranoid the way I was, you will never understand my decision. And this was a personal decision for me. So, when I did this, before I would consult with other people, I have 2 close doctor friends, and I would consult with them, and they told me, yeah, if it was my wife, I would, want them to do the same thing. But with this, I didn't want anyone's opinions. This was my decision, and I just told my doctor, I'm ready to do this.
Well, you are one brave woman, because that is a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
How do you feel mentally now that, this is a decision that you did make?
Well, I'm at peace. I know that my percentage is much lower, so I've accepted it. And, I can function this way. It's not like, my boobs are still plotting against me. They're gone, but, still that small percentage. But I feel so much better. I don't even think about it. I don't worry about it. My anxiety is gone. Yeah, I'm good.
That's good. Now, I mentioned in the intro that you were an author, so I believe you have a upcoming memoir. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, the book is called Heir to Breast Cancer. It has 12 chapters, and it will be launching in October. I'll be doing signings throughout the month of breast cancer awareness, the whole month of October, and it's my journey and a simple guide to helping others, caretakers, and even, those newly diagnosed, help them navigate through a diagnosis. It'll be filled with pictures, my pictures, illustrations, statistics, treatment options, screenings, nutrition. It's so much. I even added a chapter called Breast Cancer Etiquette.
Well, we all need that.
yeah, I mean, it was just so many things that people had said to me. I think the worst one to me was, the more recent one where people would say, well, you get a free boob job. And I get so irritated by it because a mastectomy is not a free boob job.
Right.
No matter how you look at it, whether you got insurance, financial aid, you're paying out of pocket, it's getting paid for, right? So that's the first one. Secondly, we are paying for this with our bodies. I mean, the mental anguish, the pain, the suffering, the anxiety, we are paying for it, no matter how you look at it. So it's nothing about a mastectomy that is a free boob job.
Right. It's just people are just so ignorant.
Exactly. And then, there's other things that, I talk about where, our family and friends, they mean well, but it's a lot of things that I wish they wouldn't have said or things that I wish they would have done opposed to the things that they did. We need help for a lot of things. I didn't care for the flowers. I cared for you coming to walk my dog, send some food to me or come cook, come clean, those type of things, cards and flowers and all that was good. But, the things we really need. And I swear everyone brought me breast cancer T-shirts. I must have had like 30 breast cancer shirts. You know what I did with them? Because after I had got my surgery, I didn't want to see another breast cancer shirt. So I only wore like 5 of them. I donated all of them to my my surgeon. I said, you can give them away to the ladies.
That was nice.
Yes, and I had some really nice breast cancer shirts, and I know that was so mean, but that's not what I needed you to buy for me. Mm-hmm. They had good intentions, but, I'm all in support of the pink cause, but I got so tired of looking at pink. Even my logo for my nonprofit, I decided to use the least amount of pink in it. Why does breast cancer have to just be pink, 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 pink,
Yes, I know for some that can be a trigger, especially October, the whole month. They just dread it. You just have to be patient because each person has a different journey and perspective. You just mentioned your nonprofit, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I can't give you the name because I will be announcing it at my book launch. So that's the first time people will be hearing about it.
No, I thought I could get the inside scoop.
Well, but I'll be providing assistance to women of color in the U.S., 4 countries in West Africa, and 2 in the Caribbean. We'll be providing things that insurance usually don't cover, and I want to just educate and empower women through it. I followed a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I like what they're all doing, but I wanted to add a little something different to mine, and I don't want to give those details either. But it'll be good. I plan on doing great things with it.
So do we have an expected date?
No, not yet. My date that I have in mind is October 1st. I want to be doing it the whole month of October during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, like I said, I would like to do the launch on October 1st. That's not written in stone yet, but my book is still being edited. I'll be done with that by the end of July. So they're returning me chapters every week, and I'm approving. So my chapters are almost complete. I wrote the book. The book is written, but they're just doing the final editing, and we're going to add the illustrations and pictures. So July, August, I'll be ready.
When did you decide that you wanted to write a book?
Well, I initially didn't want to write a book. A girlfriend of mine in the UK was like, you have to tell your story. And I said, okay. And then the woman, the owner, the founder of Sisters Network, Inc., is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Sisters Network, Inc.? Okay, Sheila, I had read her book, and, I mean, it was just so inspiring, and I even acknowledged her in my book. But I was like, you know what? I need to go ahead and do this, I've researched and I've seen that it wasn't a lot of, newer books out there, and I knew that it was so much more information that I could provide in my book. And, I just said, go ahead and do it. I was taking notes the whole time, but it wasn't for a book. It was just my own personal diary for me to reflect on and also, share with my family and friends and, just my recovery along the way, even though they lived it with me. But I would just want to be able to go back and, know what I'm talking about if I wanted to share it with someone and, just give insight. But thank God I had my notes. It made it so much easier to tell my story and, remember the dates and all those things, how I felt, the pain, the meds, my symptoms, all of that. It made it so much easier to tell.
Was it triggering, reliving certain situations?
No.
That's good.
Not at all.
Let me ask you, what have you learned through your breast cancer experience, and what advice would you give those who've recently been diagnosed or who are farther along in their journey?
What I've learned having breast cancer, I think the most important thing that I've learned was to keep a positive mindset and focus on your treatment. It's natural for us to go through all the negative emotions of fear, anger, and anxiety, but it's equally important to get to a space where, you can get past that, because it hindered me so much. I could even focus on my recovery. I just had all these thoughts. Oh, my gosh, am I going to die? Am I going to lose my hair? Do I got to lose my breasts? And, we really don't have no control over that, so just gain control of your emotions and don't give up hope.
Amen.
Yes. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is. And being proactive, as you were, doing the self-breast checks, getting your mammograms, that's all important and that's all key.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely important. The best safeguard, in my opinion, is knowing your family history, finding out if you have breast tissue density, doing your breast self-exams, and your yearly mammograms. Like I said, my family history was important for me to know, although I didn't carry the mutations. But the breast tissue density, I learned that years ago when I had my first exam. But, I didn't even know the two was really connected like that, until I got breast cancer and, knowing that I would need a different kind of mammogram. Because from my understanding, I was told that the breast tissue density and breast cancer both show up white on a mammogram. So you need a different type of imaging to see that. The breast self-exams, like I said, if it wasn't for me doing that, I could have been further along, in my staging had I not discovered it through that. If I would have waited a year, they say cancer grows, is it every 180 days or 60 days or something like that? So just imagine in a year, every 180 days, don't quote me, I know it's something like that, but just imagine how much it could have grown in that year had I waited for my next mammogram. So that's very important.
Yes, it is. Lastly, if someone wanted to get in touch with you about your memoir or your nonprofit or just learn more information about yourself, how can they do so?
Well, they can follow my Instagram page at Zainab, ZAINAB_ Heir to Breast Cancer, and there's where I would have all my updates and info about my book and the coming website for the nonprofit.
Wonderful. It's been such an honor talking to you, and I hope you can come back on the show to tell us more information about your nonprofit.
Yes, and the book. I would love to.
Wonderful. I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show, and hopefully we will be talking to you soon.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. You take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You have been listening to Boob Talk, and I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Tonight, we had a special survivor spotlight with guest Zainab Sow, breast cancer survivor, author, and humanitarian, empowering women through her breast cancer advocacy work, and she also will have an upcoming memoir and the beginning of a nonprofit for women of color. We all have a mission and a purpose. Until next time, God bless. You have been listening to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. Follow us on all podcasting platforms and on Facebook at Boob Talk Podcast Group and Instagram at Cynthia L. Rogers Boob Talk Podcast. Remember, never give up hope.